Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries, in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live once again. And thank you to our listeners out there in Patriot TV land as well. Today on Patriot Radio, it begins to escalate between India and Pakistan. More on the home front as President Trump signs a historic trade deal with England. And is the United States only days away from striking Iran? Also, our guest today, Bazzel, a former CIA operations officer, star on the blacklist, but most importantly, a man who is on a mission to rescue children from human trafficking. Here at Patriot Radio, we want you to have all the information before everybody else, so you not only are just in the know, but you know what to do. So you're prepared for the times ahead, the times that are already upon us. Follow us on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram for breaking news and real-time intelligence analysis. Especially this weekend, you're going to want to do that if you haven't followed us already. Also during this time, please don't walk alone. If you need prayer, contact us at patriotradio.us/prayer so that we can journey with you and pray together for breakthrough, not just for ourselves, but for our communities, our families, and our country. And that brings us now to your wisdom from the Word, coming to us from Luke 17, verse 1. Now he said to his disciples, "It is inevitable that stumbling blocks come, but woe to one through whom they come. It is better for him if a millstone is hung around his neck and he is thrown into the sea than that he may cause one of these little ones to sin." What is being exposed right now, many people have predicted, and we've talked about it here on this show, but the depth of depravity and evil is in the world, but in the United States as well. Not only is being exposed, it's being held accountable. As we go through some things today, it may shock your conscience, but it should shock your conscience into action. Because if we don't protect the next generation, if we don't expend every effort to do so, then really we're just sitting on the sidelines allowing evil to come in. And what we're really being is cowards. But it's going to take all of us to stand up together to expose the great evils in our country, but particularly around child trafficking. It's going to take all of us to stop it. The question is not a matter of if, it's when, and it's also a question of will. The choice is before you now. What will you do in this great battle to save our children? Will you stand on the sidelines, or will you get in the fight? That brings us now to your daily intelligence brief, coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
The Canadian government is beginning testing on inhaled COVID mRNA Aerovax vaccines. What could go wrong with that? One headline reads, nasal spray vaccines may be coming. Another, no needle needed. Welcome to Aerovax, developed from the HEK293 fetal line that was originated from a female fetus in 1973. Sniff it up your nose for immediate access to your brain. I wonder if in the United States it would pass a double-blind placebo trial that's required now. Probably not. You know, there's got to be something that is keying in everybody's mind right now that they keep putting these vaccines out there. Just trust us. No, actually, you need to prove yourself. And perhaps there's a globalist plot to depopulate the world. Who knows? Maybe that's true. Moving on to the selection of the Pope. White smoke came out of the Vatican today. Pope Leo XIV. Here is his picture. He calls for building bridges in his initial address. I hope they are not bridges to nowhere. And also, it is clear that he is critical of Western media's portrayal of the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families comprised of same-sex partners. Well, that's great. He viewed those things as being at odds with the gospel. Fantastic. We're on the same sheet of music. But he also is anti-MAGA and appears to be woke on the issue of immigration, as some of his tweets regarding J.D. Vance, President Trump, etc. show. So if we could bring those up right now. I want you to notice he was trying to equivocate by saying that we rank love by enforcing the law. No, actually, enforcing the law is love. It's one of the biggest expressions of it. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. But he is an American pope for the first time in Catholic history. So at least we got that going for us. And now from the China front. Significant escalating of fighting overnight, and today India says it targeted air defense systems across several locations in Pakistan, including Lahore. Also, drone swarms flying between the two countries. India soaked up Pakistan missile and drone attacks by carrying out multiple intercepts. As part of the air defense system that's being taken out in Pakistan, expect over the next 24 hours further attacks inside Pakistan. The Indian Air Force S-400 air defense missile systems were fired last night against targets moving toward India and successfully neutralized all of those attacks. 15 Indian civilians were killed, 43 injured as a result of the strikes yesterday. Pakistani foreign minister, in an interview to Turkish outlet TRT, said that Indian-Pakistan NSAs have been in touch with each other. Well, that's a positive sign. The reports that Pakistan got hit by an Indian drone 100 kilometers from the India-Pakistan border also show further escalation. In addition to that, Pakistan Army ordered evacuation of villages near Punjab's Kasur and other regions, and a complete blackout was reported in Army zones as well. So it looks like this is going to continue into the near term. Let's bring up the map right now. You can see all of the confirmed clashes on the border and also along the line of control. If we could bring that up. You'll also notice that on this map, now it's moving to the proper border between India and Pakistan, the full border with India and Pakistan. So Pakistan launching swarms of suicide drones at India. One of their main targets was the Indian airport in Satwari. Indian air defenses did shoot those drones down. So you're going to see an increasing broad array of targets as this continues to escalate. It's also interesting that Pakistani army soldiers were attending the funeral of 3 LET commanders killed in yesterday's Indian missile strikes. The LET is an Islamist terrorist organization, let's say a jihadi terrorist organization, and yet those commanders were buried with state honors in Pakistan. So yes, there is something to the fact that India is taking out terrorists and exercising the right of self-defense. And those terrorists are being sponsored by the ISI, Pakistan's intelligence apparatus. And you can see it right there. Moral support as well. Also interesting and going a little bit underreported is that China is now having some of its newer weapon systems tested in this conflict. The Chinese defense industry sold and gave to Pakistan self-propelled howitzers, medium-range air defense systems, long-range air defense systems. and 4.5, like a 4.5 generation fighter jets, and then very long-range air-to-air missiles. Those are all being tested in battle right now. So the Chinese, if you're just looking again objectively, are using this opportunity to battle test and field test their weapon systems. Also, aggressive and unsafe maneuvers by Chinese vessels near the Scarborough Shoal. Armed Forces of the Philippines on May 5th, conducting routine lawful maritime patrol operations, encountered the aggressive and unsafe maneuvers by two Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy vessels. The incident occurred approximately 11, or actually about 12 nautical miles southeast of Scarborough Shoal. We're going to continue to see that ramp up in the South China Sea. But wait, there's more in that general theater as we move to the Middle East front. In a marked shift in rhetoric, President Donald Trump said we can destroy Iran's nuclear program nicely or viciously, and the talks that were scheduled in Oman for this weekend have been canceled. Today, Iran Guard's chief warns to open the gates of hell if Israel and the U.S. attack. Fox News then came out with a story revealing Iran had been running a secret nuclear site for over a decade, violating the agreement with John Kerry from day one and other agreements that it has made. And I'm sure that Donald Trump knows this, which is why there are now 4 B-52H bombers at Diego Garcia, 6 KC-135 refueling tankers, 2 C-17 military transport aircraft, and 6 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers. So very clearly, the buildup now is to a place where Iran could be effectively taken out and there could be regime change. Now, Trump's not saying regime change, but there is a regime in waiting. And what's even more important, I think, as you look at this, that as early as this weekend, if the talks have been cut off, the United States and Israel may have already made the decision to strike. So you could see strikes in the next 72 hours. And I think that Trump has really had enough. And probably seeing some activity behind the scenes indicates that Iran really isn't serious about giving up their nuclear weapons program. And the reason, again, is for them is religious. It's from their eschatology. They believe they will usher in the 12th Imam if they destroy Israel. So, yeah, this is something I think that the U.S. needs to understand as foreign policy, as far as foreign policy is concerned. And again, be praying for peace in Jerusalem. That brings us now to the Russia front. Following in the footsteps of North Korea and Iran, Venezuela today signed a strategic partnership agreement with Russia. Remember, Venezuela is in our hemisphere. That's a very clear sign that at least the Russians are trying to put pressure at the negotiating table on their end as well. The IDF killed Mohammed Baraka, one of the terrorists involved in the abduction of an 85-year-old on October 7th. He was eliminated in Gaza City area. This is one of the probably most disturbing videos because she has really no idea where she's at when they abducted her. Dozens of airstrikes in southern Lebanon by Israel as well. Israel carried out these airstrikes and really targeted the remnants of militant forces operating in an area between Israel's border and the Litani River. Those strikes were within that buffer zone. And again, just more mopping up happening there and keeping Hezbollah as degraded as possible. Also, President Trump called for an unconditional 30-day Russian-Ukraine ceasefire. And with that, Ukraine's parliament unanimously signed President Trump's mineral deal into law. That's now official. So Zelensky said, we talked with President Trump about joint actions about the support of the United States of America, which is so needed, about pressure on Russia, pressure for peace, and discuss the situation on the front. Talked about bringing a real and lasting ceasefire closer, at least for 30 days. That was his response. Now, right now, Russia is in a 3-day ceasefire period. We'll see if that is extended. Also, Spain faced more blackouts as tens of thousands lost power in the Canary Islands just a week after nationwide outages. Again, raising the specter, is this cyber warfare? Because clearly it wasn't an electromagnetic incident, and also not having the requisite nuclear and coal power because they shut the plants down or destroyed them really doesn't account for it from a math perspective either. So we need to continue to ask questions, but here on the home front, we should be preparing to make our grid even more resilient. When we come back from the break, more from the South American and the national front, and our guest coming up soon, Bazzel Boss.
Attention business owners and entrepreneurs. Patriot TV is launching a brand new TV series showcasing American-made products, and your business could be featured. Whether you sell your products online on Etsy or Shopify and dream of reaching millions of viewers on smart TVs like Samsung, Sony, TCL, and LG, or apps like Roku, Android, and Apple TV, this is your chance. We're searching for U.S.-based businesses offering all types of products and services proudly made in the USA. If you've ever wanted to showcase your products on TV like QVC or the Home Shopping Network, now's your opportunity. Support our American economy, grow your business, and be seen by loyal Patriot viewers across the country. Know someone with a business or have a business yourself? Don't miss out. Contact us at supportingpatriots.com today. Be a guest on this new exciting TV series. Let's put your American-made products in the spotlight.
The new Supporting Patriots show on Patriot TV spotlights great Patriot-owned companies and introduces them to Patriot consumers, encouraging them to buy American-made. If you're an America-loving patriot that owns and operates his or her own business, and you have Made in America products or services, you're the perfect candidate to be interviewed on the Supporting Patriots show. If you'd like to be considered for an interview, email us at supportingpatriots@patriot.tv.
And we're back with the South America front. So very interesting. Caribbean microstate leader Gaston Brown, so Antigua, continues to heap praise on Xi Jinping. Quote, China is the most benevolent country on the planet, end quote. Quote, our bilateral relationship is one of the closest in the world between a big and small country. China's contribution to global peace and prosperity is unmatched, end quote. Brown's relationship with the Chinese Communist Party and the terrorist regimes such as Venezuela and Cuba makes that Antigua leader more than a mere annoyance, because that again is in our hemisphere. And the Chinese elite capture goes on. It brings us now to the national front. A leftist lawmaker in Washington state is offering his support. Sean Scott saying, quote, UW, that I've gotten confirmation from Super UW that the arrested protesters have all been released. If they need additional support, I'll do my best to amplify how we may be able to help. So a leftist lawmaker offering his support to the violent Antifa group responsible for the domestic terror attack at University of Washington that did over $1 million in damage to science equipment in a campus building. But a question that I have not heard answered: did those Antifa members have access to radiological devices there at UW? Nobody's answered this. Nobody's come out and said yay or nay. In fact, there's not really been much of a response. Como's Chris Daniels was the first journalist to ask Washington State Governor Bob Ferguson for his reaction to the attack by Antifa. But the Seattle mayor has still not responded, at least as of this show. Dozens of mass militants taking over a college campus building, you would think, should garner a reaction. but it should raise a ton of questions. Now, what's interesting about this, too, is that actual terrorism occurring is really not being dealt with by the Washington state legislature or the Washington state governor. Isn't that so fascinating that they tried to come after J6ers and everyone else when right here in our own state, look at those pictures, we have clear acts of terrorism. Also, a leader with Temple University Students for Justice in Palestine, a far-left extremist group, explains that the movement must use the tactics of terrorism to destroy universities and later to destroy the U.S. itself. Look at, they're coming out with their own words and saying these things. Should be nothing to geo-track these folks and prosecute them. Also, the University of Washington has received a notice that the Federal Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism has initiated a review of its federal grants and contracts. Yeah, it's about time. Now, out of Texas, John Guandolo has a great post here. Muslims are waging real war against Texas and America. Islam has no place in civilized society. And the reason he said that is an Epic City Academy director praises Hamas, jihad, and martyrdom. Now, again, jihad, as defined by the Reliance of the Traveler, the foremost Sunni law book for Islam, says that jihad is warfare against non-Muslims. In other words, Christians and Jews. And we might add in polytheists like those in India as well. Steve Scalise, let's be clear about what happened. The FBI deliberately withheld facts and falsely claimed the congressional baseball shooting was suicide by cop, so they didn't have to admit it was politically motivated left-wing violence. I applaud FBI Director, Kash Patel, for correcting the record. Yes, it's about time. Interesting how the truth is coming out every single day. Now, shifting on to the economy, global growth bellwether Maersk slashes container market outlook. So again, this is the fifth objective report coming out that the container market outlook is continuing to go down because of the decrease in trade from China to the United States. But on that note, Trump announced an agreement with the United Kingdom today, a full and comprehensive one that will cement the relationship for many years to come because of our long-time history and allegiance. Together, it is a great honor to have the United Kingdom as our first announcement. Many other deals, which are in serious stages of negotiation, will follow. So Trump continues with a great strategy to bring people to the table to negotiate bilateral deals. But the Federal Reserve, of course, doesn't want to play along. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell tells Trump, once again, he's going to refuse to drop rates despite amazing economic news. End the Fed. This time. End it. No more monkeying around with the economy. Put it back constitutionally where it belongs, with the U.S. Treasury, it being control over a monetary supply. I know some people might argue with that, but that's what it really is. Read The Creature from Jekyll Island. President Trump just announced that he is withdrawing Ed Martin's nomination to be Washington, D.C.'s top prosecutor because of Tom Tillis working with Democrats to block its confirmation. This is setting the Republicans up, I agree, for a loss in the midterms unless something changes drastically. Congress should be codifying some of these reforms that Trump has put in where it can, but also should be working with him to put in actual reformers into positions where they can make change. Likewise, today, Trump announced Casey Means, U.S. Surgeon General, but she doesn't have an active medical license. And more disturbing from a Christian perspective, she says things like she uses shrooms, talks to trees, and visits spirit mediums. Yeah, that's going to be a hard pass on that one. They really need vetting in the administration right now. I mean, they really do. And President Trump needs help. Please be praying for that and using your voice to amplify the issue. 7 Detroit residents on the election integrity side and a pastor appeared before the Michigan House Election Integrity Committee to reveal shocking firsthand testimony about massive election stealing scheme. Also, American First Legal recently secured a groundbreaking election integrity victory in Arizona over the presence of non-citizens on voter rolls. As a result, all 15 counties in the pivotal swing state are now required and working to remove non-citizens from the state voter rolls. That is a huge win. Likewise, on the election integrity front, more good news. 6 individuals, including a judge, have been indicted and arrested for election-related crimes tied to a vote harvesting scheme in Frio County, Texas, according to Attorney General Ken Paxton. Also, a Colorado postal worker pled guilty to rigging the 2024 presidential election. You know, that thing that they keep not talking about. CIA Director John Radcliffe said thank you to the many CIA officers who worked weekends and many late nights to support this effort and get these documents into the public hands. What documents are those? 60,000 additional files related to the assassination of Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Some of the revelations in that are pretty interesting, especially the investigation afterwards. And did Sirhan actually act alone? At least in the eyes of some of the investigators, the answer to that question was no. So check that out. And James O'Keefe has released footage of a royal family advisor alleging that Prince Andrew lied about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein and was involved with underage girls. There it is. And there likely will be more to come out. But the timing of this couldn't be better because of our guest today, Bazzel Baz, when we come back from the break. How can we stop child trafficking in the United States?
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing your financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
And back here with the brief, as I was ending it, talking about these revelations from Jeffrey Epstein that everybody has kind of figured out and known was coming. The bigger issue is not just watching it on the news and saying, okay, well, I watched the news, I've done my part. The question really is, what can I do about this besides watching? What can I do about this in my own community to stop the scourge of child trafficking? And that's why our guest today is so important. Bazzel Baz is a former CIA operations officer, also a Citadel graduate, recipient of the Intelligence Commendation Medal, and a former counterterrorism officer in the U.S. Marine Corps. He's the founder of the Association for the Recovery of Children. And I want to add this, and I love this tagline: if we do not, who will? Our primary focus is on one thing and one thing only: the recovery of abducted children. We don't come home without a child. Baz, it's great to have you on. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. It looks like we're on mute right now.
All right, how's that?
There we go. Perfect.
Good.
It's great to have you on.
It's good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you too. So, Jeffrey Epstein revelations. I was just looking at the articles just over the last 72 hours. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says that HHS was a collaborator in child trafficking. They need to find 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration, Border Patrol agents arrested in a child trafficking sting. You've got FBI targeting 250 suspects in the 764 network of online predators manipulating kids. I mean, this is finally being exposed. So if you can give everybody that's listening and watching just kind of an idea of how big this really is.
Yeah, thank you for that. You know what's so funny about that is, you know this because we were working on this whole thing, particularly your group in Washington State. But these are things that we had been telling people for like the last 2 years. I'm really glad and we're blessed to finally have the right people in office to actually reconfirm all of this stuff, like Bobby Kennedy, I mean, doing that and what he said. And it's just amazing. It's because even though we're in the trenches, and we try not to get too much exposure in front of the media, no one's going to listen to the smaller voices. So I would say that we are actually blessed to have that kind of representation in places like HSS and other places, and 47 and General Mike Flynn, and the list goes on and on to have that. But to answer your question, Matt, I think that when we talk about this issue that more people are becoming aware of, child sex trafficking, right now in the United States, there's this kind of type of thinking where it's the pimp, or it's just the local pimp or the gang in my neighborhood or in my city or whatever it may be. Let me tell you what it really is, and this is solid intel. We know this for a fact. We've been watching it for years. When we talk about this being a global criminal enterprise, okay? So we can get your head wrapped around this. We're talking about people that we used to think were good people in high positions of influence who've actually turned out to be bad people. And what they do is they fuel the global criminal enterprise now with children. So in the old days, if you were going to move money, you're going to move weapons, nuclear devices, whatever it is, under in the black market or whatever. Generally speaking, it was fueled by drugs. What they realize is they can fuel it better with children, and we know why. If someone sells you a kilo of Coke, that's gone in a day, but I can sell you that little girl or that little boy 15 times a day and make 3 times as much money. And now if you talk about, all the children that were missing, American children that were missing before we had this incident with Biden and his administration, now we have 500,000 plus UACs missing. So yeah, that's a big profit. So what America needs to understand is, yes, it is in your backyard, but children are the commodity. They are what fuels the global criminal enterprise that operates around the world and operates in the United States as well. And this is not conspiracy. This is the facts. And it will all come out, just as all of this stuff has already come out, about the UACs and stuff. It's interesting because we were the first team on the ground, I think you know this, Matt, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, when we discovered the night flights coming in with illegal immigrant children being put on buses and taken to parking lots and handed off to not family members, no reunification center, just given, and children reluctantly being pushed towards men, some women in cars and driven away. I remember as we were getting ready to early on move into that operation, I made a courtesy call to TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, spoke to an agent, said, "Are you aware that this is going to happen at 2:00 in the morning?" And he said, "Oh yeah, it's on the up and up." And yet 2 days later, after this story broke, the governor himself said, "I didn't know anything about it." Right. And the people that ran Wilson Airfield said, "We didn't know anything about it." And the local security there, "We didn't know anything about it." That's a bunch of hogwash. They all knew it. They're all on the payroll, and they're all part of the deep state involved in this corruption to sell children. Now, if you don't have a heart for children, I can't convince you that it's wrong. And there are people that don't have a heart for this. Those are the same people that will sell drugs and buy drugs and sell weapons and buy weapons. But that's a small percentage of Americans. And so it's also interesting, and we just got this intel in lately. I was in the impression that most of these UACs, Matt, came in through Catholic Charities, MVM, which, by the way, has a close tie to the CIA. And why is a big question. Where children were being distributed to sponsors, and guess what? Some of those sponsors don't even exist. So I'm glad that Bobby said, we're gonna cut this off. We've cut this off what Biden started, and we're gonna go find all these kids because there's data on that, right? The challenge we're gonna have, and I think he knows this already, is that a lot of those sponsors never existed, or a lot of kids were giving to multiple kids, 20 kids, 30 kids given to the same sponsor. And some of those addresses don't exist because there was a time, remember, when they stopped doing the DNA testing on the border and just shipped kids out. So some of those kids it's not even their real name. Some of the sponsors, it's not their real name. So the Biden administration, and I'm pointing the finger at them because they are guilty of child trafficking in this country. And if you or I would have done that, Matt, we'd be in prison right now. And I'm hoping 47 and this administration goes after them like lightning and puts them all in prison, because this is an injustice to these innocent children. This is a crime against humanity. This is a crime against children, and they're responsible for it, and every one of them should be in prison for it. So this is what's happening. Will we find all those kids? I doubt it. I spoke to a contractor who will go unnamed, who was part of one of the organizations transporting the children. And he actually said, you know what? Not only were we transporting children in America, he said, but we were flying them overseas to Europe. So will we ever find all those kids? I doubt it very seriously. And then here's the question that should rest on people's soul. What's going to happen to all those kids? You really honestly think that MVM and Catholic Charities and all these contracted under Biden's administration organizations said, we're going to do the very best we can to find a decent home for this child? No, they didn't. It was about money, and they sold children. And so those children are going into pornography, child sex slavery, organ harvesting, and all the worst of the worst. And that's when we do find them, and we find some of them, that's the condition we're going to find them in. I know it's a bit long-winded, but it is global. It is big. It is the biggest criminal enterprise it's deep state plus more.
Billions and billions of dollars, no question about it. And I run into this cognitive dissonance with some local law enforcement, and I honor what they do, but there's this cognitive dissonance where they say, well, yeah, that might happen in Chicago, might happen in LA, but it really doesn't happen in my community. And I'm like, if you have a freeway going through your community, there is trafficking that is coming through your community, whether you know it or not. How do you respond to those local law enforcement officials that seem to have that cognitive dissonance?
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. I have some great law enforcement partners all across America, and we have these closed-door sessions talking about what their challenge is now. And so from the law enforcement side of the house, their challenge is cleaning up their own backyard. There are so many law enforcement officers, and we see it, local, state, and federal, that are complicit in this crime, either directly or indirectly. And we see it. Just take a look. Spend your time doing your research. Officer so-and-so arrested for child pornography. Officer so-and-so arrested for trafficking. Agent so-and-so involved in child sex trafficking. I mean, it's constant. It's constant. So they're having the challenge of cleaning up their own backyard. And so a lot of times because of that, it's easier to deny it instead of deal with it. It's kind of like the marijuana thing. When it got so big we couldn't control it, what do we do with it? We legalize it and we tax it. It's what they want to do with prostitution. It's so big, it's so out of control. It's like, we're going to legalize it and then we're going to tax it. Guess what? It's about the money again. So I tell a lot of my law enforcement officers, we were up in a certain place up north, and they said the same thing. And what's so funny is we already do our homework, and it's like, yeah, let's see, with 2 miles from around here, you have 56 child predators, and you have trafficking here, here, and here. And we throw the stats out, and it goes like, here you go. Here's 156 ads for sex last night in your city. And you're telling me you have no trafficking here. Yeah. So They don't want to believe it, and sometimes they do believe it. But if they turn a blind eye to it, then they don't feel guilty about getting involved with prostitution or prostitutes, or the fact that sometimes, honestly, they know they're undermanned and they're under budgeted, and it's just one more thing on top of the crime list that they have to deal with. And they just kind of say, like, look, if we say it's not happening here, then we don't have to go address that. And here's another thing too. The majority of law enforcement officers in America are not trained in this arena. They're just not. They may get 2 hours online. They don't understand victimology. They don't understand the criminal enterprise. They don't even understand gangs. We had a town of 500 up north in another state that MS-13 was operating and trafficking. And that's just a town of 500.
Yeah.
But MS-13 was there. So these are, I think, Matt, this is why they don't wake up and smell the coffee. And here's another thing too. Remember, our law enforcement officers, from the time they go to the academy, they're taught to be reactive, not proactive. They're not like special operations in Afghanistan or ground branch out of the CIA or whatever, or like when you were in the military. They're not like that. They're not like, let's go stop this before it happens. They're reactive. So until it lands on their doorstep, it doesn't exist. And I remember when I was having a talk with one of the departments, and they were actually laughing at me about the fact that MS-13 could be in their town. And I'm pretty tolerant of that. I get it. I understand. And I hate to say it this way, stupidity based on the fact that you have no former knowledge of certain things. But you need to put your arrogance in your back pocket and realize just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's kind of like just because you don't see air, well, guess what? You breathe it every day. So I told him, I said, let me ask you a question. Do you have RPGs? No. Do you have unlimited AK-47s and grenades and C4? Do you have all these weapons? No. So what do you have? Well, we have our sidearm and we have some M16s that we keep in the car. I said, when MS-13 decides to come after you, they're going to do it a couple of ways. Number one, if they decide to come after your department, they're going to kill everybody in your department. They're going to hit your department just like they do in Mexico, and they're going to wipe every one of you out. And I said, and the second thing is, if they choose not to use that strategy, here's what they'll do. They'll go after what you care about the most.
Yep. Because
you don't run SDRs from home to business every day. They're going to go to your family, and they're going to cut their heads off, and they're going to kill them, and they're going to send a message to you. And guess what? You only have two choices. You can either try to hunt them down, which isn't going to work for you, or guess what? You get off the police force. And then they just kind of got quiet. But I don't think people that don't come from our world, they're just, we have this generation that just came up through the Biden administration when it's the civilian world, the whole woke thing. They're not in touch with reality. They have no idea. They're not in the trenches, and they don't want to learn from those who came before them that experienced all this and understand that history repeats itself. And you and I grew up different than that,
Yeah, no, I know I hate to say it that way, but it was different when we grew up. And that doesn't mean we stop now. And when we come back from the break, I want to talk with you about what people can actually do to be effective in this fight to rescue the next generation, really, and the next generation's destiny. Bazzel Baz, recoveryofchildren.org.
American business owners, you understand the power of TV. If you have a product that you want to sell to millions of like-minded Americans who value quality, hard work, and supporting the red, white, and blue, Supporting Patriots is the perfect place. If you're ready to bring your product to a patriotic audience eager to buy American, then contact us today at supportingpatriots.com and secure your spot on Supporting Patriots. Let's build a stronger economy. When we buy American, we support our future.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
If I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well. It's letting me sleep. It's feeling with more energy, more get up and go. And it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
We're back with Bazzel Baz, Association for the Recovery of Children, recoveryofchildren.org. So before the break, we were talking a little bit about local law enforcement, some of the cognitive dissonance there. I want to talk also about the cognitive dissonance in the church. Is there child trafficking actually happening inside the church? And what responsibility, what role should the church be playing in fighting this?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only the church and I mean, it's unlimited, Matt. I mean, in every organization that you can think of almost. It doesn't mean that every church, but if you think because we're the faith-based community that you don't have that there, you're smoking weed. We have so many cases over the last 33 years that involve hospitals, churches, law enforcement. I mean, everybody. So, particularly for the faith-based community in your churches, number one, you need to be aware of how many child sex predators are within a 3-mile radius of your church. Okay. And then the question is, what do you want to do about that? And would those child sex predators be able to influence anybody in your church? Or is there anybody in your church that is influenced by pornography, child pornography? There's a difference. There's a great difference, and the scriptures talk about it, between the wicked and the sinners. Okay. So I'll give it to them. The sinners were in church. We repent. God forgives us of that. The wicked spit in the face of God, and God says he hates the wicked and he'll destroy the wicked. So what's interesting is when all of a sudden, there you are, you have someone in your church and they make a mistake, whatever it may be, a sin, missing the mark, so to speak. But then they continue to feed that mistake, and then they become the wicked. And the next thing you know, they're preying on your children and the church. Yes, we see it happen a lot. We also see that the really interesting that the gangs now are actually targeting churches because it's kind of valued more because there's a satanic or demonic influence on it, that if you can get a Christian girl or Christian boy and get them into trafficking, you've scored really high, So it boils down to what hurts God's heart the most, and that is when the innocent children are taken and thrown into this demonic pit, so to speak. And I'm not trying to be preachy at any of the listeners, but I will tell you this. God doesn't need your belief or your disbelief in order to exist. Right. Just like it doesn't work that way. We all have one thing in common. Trust me, we're all going to leave this earth, and you're going to stand before somebody. It's going to be the creator of this universe. And so with that in mind, just remember that Satan is doing everything he can to destroy God and God's heart. It's a battle that's been going on for eternity. And if he can use someone in the church to do it, he will. So in the faith-based community, you need to first wake up and realize it can happen in your church. The second thing is you need to know what to look for in your church. The third thing is, what do you do about it when you discover it? Outside of hanging someone on a short rope from a big tree, so to speak. Because I will tell you, most of the parents that I talk to in churches that understand this issue and come to our courses and learn this, they all say the same thing. I will kill anybody that touches my children. I don't blame them. I don't blame them one bit, because, our job as parents is to protect our kids. Now, that's for good parents. There are parents that sell their kids into trafficking every single day, and I don't consider them good parents. So I hope that answers it for you, Matt.
It does, and that brings us to the next question of what can people really do about this? I mean, not everybody's going to be cut out to go knocking in doors or something like that, or working with local law enforcement to give them intelligence. So what can the average American, the average churchgoer do to fight back? Because I think a lot of people know it's in their community, but it's just so big they don't know where to start.
Yeah, well, first place, and you took our course, you need to know what it looks like, smells like, what it walks like, this whole trafficking AO, area of operation. And number one, you have to care. If you don't care, then you know how I'm about this, Matt. If you don't care about this issue, get the heck out of my way, because we're going to go save kids. They are the fate of our nation. They are the future of our nation. And that's why I try to encourage whatever it is now, 50 million veterans. It's like, guys, girls, guess what? You swore to defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic. Guess what? The enemy is right in our country right now, and the future of our country that will carry on the Constitution are our children. So guess what? There's a war going on. Get involved. So if people care, they need to be trained. And a lot of people try to get out there, Matt, and they have great hearts, but like anything, and you know this coming out of the military, before you go off to war, you got to train, okay? And you got to know what the enemy looks like, what you're up against, how to move. I mean, you got to know everything so that you survive the war and you accomplish the mission, okay? So what's our mission here? To save children, or in our case, to save missing, exploited, and sex trafficked American children. So you need to be trained. I think there's a lot of training programs out there, but I think we pretty much, after 33 years, the longest running child rescue organization, have the gold standard for that. It's that intense 6-day course called the Child Sex Trafficking Equipping Course that not only teaches you everything you need to know, but it teaches you how to go out there and actually save a kid. And if you don't want to save a kid, how to properly report it and do something that'll affect the change and save the life of a child. You came to the course, you can speak to it, and you guys immediately, on top of what you were already doing, went out there and are doing exactly that. So I encourage people to do that and let us train them up. You can go to recoveryofchildren.com and it'll tell you our training courses throughout the year. We only can run 6 of them because we're so saturated with operations in between that we don't have any other time. But that's the biggest thing. And then you can get out there. Knowing what you can do as an American citizen is very important, what your rights. A lot of people think this is left up to law enforcement. The Constitution says we the people. Mm-hmm. And when you can get your head wrapped around how much power you have, and you realize that the police and the senators and the mayor work for you, then you get your power back. And with that power, you can go out there and save children and do it legally and do it safely.
When I took the course, I had a preconceived notion that there had to be a certain skill set or a level of skill, but there really doesn't. It's about heart. If somebody's got the will to be involved and the will to help rescue the next generation, they will plug in where they have ability. And so that's what I really loved about the course. It ran the gamut. It ran the gamut of skill sets and ran the gamut of demographics. So in the last couple of minutes that we have left, specifically where, if you want, where can people plug in? Where should they be getting some information to learn more about this? Maybe where could they go get trained?
Yeah, just what I was saying, if you go to recoveryofchildren.com, that's the site will tell you about the training courses. Recoveryofchildren.org is our website if you want to know a little bit more about us. And I will let you know, and you know this, it's 6 days and it's intense, but you're exactly right. We have so many people, Matt, that call me up and say, hey, I want to help with ARC, or I want to start an NGO. What can I do? And I tell them, come to the course, understand the area of operation, and then you tell me where you can plug yourself in. Just like you're saying, where do you fit in? Because you know your skill sets better than I know that and everything. We want to force multiply what ARC is doing. We want to build out an army of other NGOs, besides ARC, that can go out there and do this. Because if we do not, then the question is, who will? And I can tell the audience right now, don't expect anybody else to do this for you. There is so much bureaucracy, so much corruption, so much red tape, that if the community, your community, doesn't get out there and do something about it, it will not get done, and children will be lost forever. And here's the thing about it. If you don't get involved, one day it's going to land on your doorstep, and it might be your child or your grandchild. So what you give is kind of what you receive in this life, to be honest with you, Matt.
It's absolutely right. In the last minute, very quickly, I got to ask you this question. Do you think the Epstein files will actually be released, or is this just pie in the sky?
Say that one more time.
Do you think the Epstein files will actually be released, or is this just pie in the sky?
That's a really good question. I think that I don't like the delay myself, but with any investigation, you have to remember something on the Epstein files, maybe, is that not everybody who was on that list is guilty of anything. That's like me walking out of a meeting back in the CIA days, and it just happened to be 2 KGB officers that I was unaware of sitting at a table next to me, right? And the next thing you know, somebody's trying to arrest me the FBI is trying to arrest me going, for being involved with the KGB, and it's not true. So I think the same thing. I think people are being very careful. I don't get the impression that anybody's hiding anything right now. I think that probably Pam Bondi and those people are trying to navigate this correctly to make sure they don't ruin anybody's career unnecessarily, and at the same time make sure they have enough evidence to really lock people up forever. In addition to all of that, just think about this: within their own ranks, whether it's 47's ranks, Pam Bondi's ranks, DOJ, the FBI, whatever, they're still dealing with corruption and literally criminal espionage. Who can they trust? The Biden administration, Obama, maybe all the way back to Bush, they managed to put their people in place so they could get away with what they're getting away now, the deep state. So I think we're cleaning house and we're trying to run government at the same time and have accountability. And that's a really big task. That's a really big task. So I think we keep it in our prayers. 47, he's not a politician. He's a leader.
Thank God.
And he's a great leader. And I think his direction to the people underneath him is superb. And I think he's a great strategist to become the businessman that he is. And so he may have given them direction for the way to handle things and the timing of a lot of things. So we'll know after 2 years, if it's not out, well, then maybe we go back to the drawing board and say, why isn't it? And start demanding it.
Yeah, we need to have a little bit of patience. Bazzel Boz, thanks for joining me on Patriot Radio today. Fantastic conversation. Really appreciate everything you do. You're in our prayers. Keep up the fight.
Yeah, thank you. Out here.
recoveryofchildren.org, recoveryofchildren.com. Check it out. Where do you fit into this? So what can you do? Well, as he said, I took that course. Maybe that means you should too. This is Matt Shea. Thank you so much for joining me on Patriot Radio today. May God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. The awakening is here. So keep up the fight.